trying to hold on. 4 seconds left. Jones. Steps on Jones. Knocked away. And it's over. Flag down. The flag came out late. Golden Tate, the intended receiver. Officials will talk it over. I think they're going to call offensive interference.
Pass interference. Offense. Our rule, the game is over.
It's done. The Chicago Bears escape. They hold off the New York Giants 17-13, the final at Soldier Field.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy HP, and you're listening to the Unsportsmanlike Conduct Podcast, a podcast for the average Joe covering football and everything New York Giants. Before I get into this episode, I want everyone to please subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Instagram, that's _unsportsmanlike_conduct. I'm also on Twitter, so please make sure you follow me on Twitter, that's _unsportsman. So, I'm sure you can tell from the opening clip, the New York Giants lose their Week 2 matchup against the Chicago Bears, 17-13. Now, let's all be honest. Did we not think that Daniel Jones was going to lead a last-minute, heroic game-winning drive against the Chicago Bears? Unfortunately, that drive stalls out in an incomplete pass right in the red zone, which also resulted in an offensive pass interference by Golden Tate, which I don't know if everyone read sort of Joe Judge's reaction to the game. He was actually pretty upset that the game ended on an offensive pass interference. But as everyone knows, if you've been following this podcast or if you're new to this podcast, the way this sort of works is after every game, I'm going to give my reactions to sort of what I saw on the offensive side of the football for the New York Giants and also on the defensive side of the football for the New York Giants as well, and kind of just mix in sort of some of the plays and players of what I've liked and what I didn't like in yesterday's matchup against the Chicago Bears. So, starting with the offense, someone who's going to be sort of a main character and a main focal point of this podcast is going to be the New York Giants quarterback, and that's Daniel Jones. Let's talk about Daniel Jones. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought Daniel Jones played a decent game. I know he fumbled it, and I know he threw an interception. I think that was the result of the first 2 drives of the New York Giants, if I'm not mistaken. The first 2 possessions for the New York Giants were turnovers. And I know that those are gut-wrenching plays. They suck the wind out of an offense and actually the whole team rather. But other than those 2 turnovers, I thought Daniel Jones played as well as he could. Something that I mentioned last week when I talked about the matchup against the Steelers. Other than Daniel Jones' turnovers, there wasn't a throw that I disagreed with from Daniel Jones. Other than that, I think Daniel Jones plays a pretty solid game. I mean, is there any other throw other than those 2 early first quarter turnovers by Daniel Jones that made you question, why did he make that play? Why did he take the sack there? Why did he turn it over? Why did he miss Sterling Shepard or Darius Slayton? Or why didn't he find this guy open? I'll be honest, I didn't see that the rest of the game. I thought he played some pretty sound football after that. But unfortunately, this New York Giants team, and it's been sort of the theme as we're 0-2 for, 4 years straight now. But the theme for this New York Giants team is we're so close in these games for predominantly most of the game, but we're unable to turn those close games into victories because we're just unable to sort of overcome our mistakes that we make early on in games. That's what happened against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's what happened now. When we turn the ball over, we just can't get over it right away. And thankfully we did force turnovers this game, which is also one of the main reasons why we almost had a fighter's chance to actually pull this out and come back, being down 17-0 at the half. We picked off Trubisky twice. And also, one of the interceptions was by the first-year, first-time cornerback for the New York Giants, James Bradbury. And also one of this other picks thrown by Trubisky was also a result of James Bradbury making a tight play on one of Trubisky's throws. So I do want to sort of give kudos to James Bradbury there. But kind of going back to Daniel Jones and this offense, look, Daniel Jones once again completed more than 50% of his passes, 25 of 40. Threw one interception, threw for 241 yards. I mean, look, we lost Sterling Shepard early in the game. As everyone knows, we lost Saquon Barkley early in the game. So for the second straight week, Daniel Jones does not have a running game and also does not have his full set of wide receivers to complete the game. Now, ironically, this was the first game that Daniel Jones started with all of his weapons, his full arsenal. Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Golden Tate, Evan Ingram, and obviously at running back, Saquon Barkley. While he may have started with those weapons, he didn't finish with them. And it wasn't like these guys got hurt late in the game. They got hurt in the first half. Sterling Shepard tried to come out of the second half, and almost right after I believe it was the first pass play when Sterling Shepard tried to run a route, he limped right off of the field. He went right straight to the sidelines. But I do want to give a kudos to C.J. Board, who I thought did a great job stepping in for Sterling Shepard. 3 catches for 32 yards. I mean, that is production you expect for somebody coming off the bench who isn't a starter, who isn't going to get a starter number of snaps, who is sitting behind 3 other receivers. I was happy with C.J. Board. C.J. Board actually made a couple of, I think 2 of his, he actually had some pretty good, I think it was 2 out of the 3 receptions where he had some pretty decent yards after the catch. So I actually like the production that we're getting from C.J. Board. And, for the sake of Sterling Shepard and the longevity of this season, I'll be okay if Sterling Shepard decides to not play next week and just rest up a little bit more before we head to our subsequent matchup, which I believe would be against the Dallas Cowboys. But after going down 17-zip, I thought Daniel Jones and this offense pulled together. I mean, the heart of this team is something I haven't seen over the last couple of years. And I know New York Giants fans are sick and tired of hearing about moral victories, but this team just has a different energy. You can tell this team believes they're good. You can tell this team believes they're good enough to win. I think the wins are going to come. Now, keep in mind, we're still in a rebuilding phase. So look, we're not going to make it to the playoffs this year. There's no way we're not a good enough team to make it to the playoffs. We're just not. Our offensive line is still not good yet, and while there's a huge improvement this game in terms of the amount of pass rush, we don't have the greatest front 7 right now. Our secondary is still depleted. Corey Ballantyne is our second cornerback. He is starting for us, and he 2 straight weeks continues to make mistakes. I mean, that touchdown that he gave up to the rookie on the Chicago Bears, I mean, that was the most poorly played ball I've ever seen. But sorry, again, don't mean to digress here. Want to still focus on the offense. Daniel Jones, after going down 17-zip, was able to score 13 points in the second half. You got to give him credit where it's due. Daniel Jones was able to lead this offense, and he was moving the chains, man. I mean, at one point, I kind of said this one against the Steelers. There were a couple of drives where the New York Giants offense just looked unstoppable. You got to give credit where it's due. It's just people are mad that Daniel Jones fumbled the football again. That was a great play. I believe it was by I believe the guy who got the sack and the forced fumble there was Khalil Mack. I mean, that was a great play, inside leverage, right off the line against Andrew Thomas, who is a rookie left tackle. Of course he's going to lose that matchup against Khalil Mack. You know what I mean? Instead of forcing or instead of blaming Daniel Jones for fumbling the football, we kind of need to blame the offensive line for Daniel Jones fumbling the football. He took a lick on that. But there are other times where Daniel Jones got hit and he didn't fumble the football. Daniel Jones has shown to me in the first 2 games he can take a pounding and not fumble the football. That fumble that he did have in that first half was just a result of a good play on the ball. I don't think it was a matter of Daniel Jones being careless. Now, granted, do I think he has sort of that Carson Wentz syndrome where maybe he holds on to the ball just a little bit too long and is looking for that big play? Yeah, I think so. But he's a second-year quarterback. Eli Manning had 17 interceptions in his second year. Imagine we would have drove Eli Manning out of town after his second year with the New York Giants. we currently would not be enjoying those 2 Super Bowls that he had given us over the last decade or so. Guys, it's all about level setting this. No one came in saying the Giants were going to make it to the playoffs. So if you're upset that we suck again, that's on you for having these outrageous expectations. Now, of course, I hate losing. I'm tired of losing. It sucks losing, especially because I have friends who don't watch that much football but still enjoy watching the New York Giants lose. So I have to answer to those guys, and I'm sure if I have to answer to people like that, then you have to answer to people like that too. I know people who are New England Patriots fans. Other than primetime games, I don't know how these guys are even watching the New England Patriots. These guys couldn't even name the starters on the offensive line. But they're New England Patriots fans, and they'll go on and start messaging me about how happy they are that the New York Giants continue to lose. So I have to deal with guys like that. So if I have to deal with guys like that, I know you guys are also dealing with the same thing. I'm tired of these close losses. I'd rather you get blown out in the first half so that you're not pulling on my heartstrings. Because, man, some of these losses are just heartbreaking. They just are, man. But what are you going to do? You can't blame Daniel Jones for this. And it's like, I don't want this season to be me coming on the mic every weekend defending Daniel Jones. We had no running game once again. Saquon Barkley looks like he was having a decent game because he just had an 18-yard run, 4 carries, 28 yards. I mean, that's what you're looking for out of Daniel Jones, but he gets hurt. After that, our production from the run game from Dion Lewis, 10 carries, 20 yards. That's 2 yards a carry, guys. That production's not enough. And look, I applaud Dion Lewis and that offensive line on that I believe it was a 4th and 1. Essentially a 4th and goal, but we were on the 1 yard line. And that offensive line pushed and mauled the front 7 of the Chicago Bears defense to convert that long drive by Daniel Jones into a touchdown. And I do want to talk about that drive because that was a methodical drive as well. And I thought we may have that drive was 11 plays and 95 yards. Took up about 5 minutes of the quarter. 11 plays, 95 yards. Is that not similar to how well we were moving the chains against the Pittsburgh Steelers on that 19-play drive? I mean, do I think we caught a break or two with some penalties? Yeah, of course we did, but that's football. And the penalties in this game weren't penalties that I thought were egregious. I thought they were the correct play. I thought that they were the right play. Penalties are part of the game. If you have good enough players and disciplined enough players to stay within their techniques and they're able to force the other team to commit penalties, that means you did something good enough for the other team to make those mistakes. And you have to applaud the Giants for forcing other teams to commit those penalties. But I want to talk about a couple of things. I mean, remember that. Think about it. That 11-play drive was the drive that Daniel Jones was scrolling right. He was about to take a sack. He was actually getting brought down. He flips it over to Dion Lewis for an 11-yard gain. What an absolute amazing heads-up play. I love a quarterback that's willing to take chances instead of, sort of holding in the ball and taking in that sack. Keeping your head up while you're about to get hit by a defensive end is one of the most smartest things you can do as a quarterback, because the way these route trees and plays are designed, you're not sending everyone on a Hail Mary all the time. There's always that one guy that's near the line of scrimmage or near within the box that a quarterback can that a quarterback can rely on to get the ball to out quick in the event he is getting pressured by a quarterback. They call those checkdowns. You ever hear the analyst saying, check the ball down, check the ball down? You know what that means? That usually means pass it to the running back who just came out of who just ran a route out of the backfield. That's what your check down usually is, and that's what Daniel Jones did. He followed the check down, found Dion Lewis, flipped the ball over. Dion Lewis got an 11-yard gain, which resulted in a first down, and that's what kept that drive alive, because that play happened on a 3rd and 3 at the New York Giants' own 12-yard line. So if that drive stalls out at a 3rd and 3 at the New York Giants' 12-yard line, imagine what that punt and that punt return could have potentially looked like, where the Bears potentially get the ball on their own 40. Short yard situation, and they're able to maybe convert that drive into a field goal or a touchdown. And then after that, Daniel Jones passes it to Golden Tate. That was a 20-yard gain. Then Daniel Jones finds C.J. Board for a 12-yard gain. Then this is where it got a little ugly. Daniel Jones is under pressure. He scrolls out, I believe it was to the right side, scrambles for 12 yards, finds a first down, and then unnecessary roughness by Roquan Smith. I thought that penalty wasn't egregious. I thought that was an adequate penalty. I thought the New York Giants would have flipped if they would have not called that unnecessary roughness. Now, they showed the play. Roquan Smith thankfully missed Daniel Jones because I think had Roquan Smith going in with his shoulder and his head, aiming, the way he was aiming towards Daniel Jones could have potentially had a head-to-head collision, and who knows how Daniel Jones would have been able to eat that hit. That could have been an injury, a scary injury, which is something obviously we wouldn't want for our starting quarterback to sort of go through. And then you have that injury on top of Sterling Shepard and Saquon Barkley. I mean, you might as well stop watching the Giants for the rest of the season. Because I'll be honest, you can call me a fake fan. I know I'm not a fake fan, but there's no way I'll be dedicating a podcast with Colt McCoy starting as the New York Giants quarterback. There's no way. If that happens, whether it's via injury or whether Daniel Jones has to get benched, I am not getting on this podcast to talk about Colt McCoy. That's just not happening. But yeah, scrambles for 12 yards, 15-yard penalty. Now we're at 1st and 10 at the Chicago 18. And then there's another penalty. Defensive offsides, we make the defensive line jump. That's 5 yards, 1st and 5, Chicago 13. Daniel Jones finds Evan Ingram for 6 yards. 1st and goal. And, I'm so glad Joe Judge went for this on 4th and goal. The drive looked like it was about to stall out, and I really thought Joe Judge would have kicked the field goal because there was another drive. There's another drive in this game where we were 4th and 3, and instead of Joe Judge and Jason Garrett deciding to go for it, they decide to try to get the Chicago Bears defense to jump off sides, and they don't, and they subsequently decide to kick. So I was really totally against that, but I'm glad at a 4th and goal at the 1-yard line, they said, hey, look, what do we have to lose? We might as well go for it here. We were down 17-3 anyways. We might as well go for a touchdown. We literally have nothing to lose. And if we don't convert, at least we give our defense a chance to defend about 60 to 70 yards before the Bears could even get into field goal position. And then that play by the offensive line and Deion Lewis at that 4th and 1, it was ironic because I believe Charles Davis, the announcer on the game, when it was 4th and goal at the 1-yard line, Charles Davis said, "You know what? I wouldn't run it here. I'd stick with the passing game. I would not run the ball here." And that's what the Giants did. They ran the ball, and it was good because it wasn't Deion Lewis, like that touchdown by the New York Giants. I mean, we mauled the front seven of the Chicago Bears. It wasn't like Deion Lewis looked like he was about to get, sort of stuffed at the line of scrimmage or stuffed minus yards. No, it was the offensive line pushed, and we were able to get into the end zone. So great drive, great 11-play drive by the New York Giants there to get us to 17-10. And then subsequently after, interception on that play, huge play by James Bradbury. And the next play, look, I talked about how the offense was able to move the chains. That next drive, so we went 17-10. Deion Lewis scores that one-yard rushing touchdown. We get an interception, and you want to know what happens on the next drive? Right after we get the ball from the interception, that drive went 10 plays, guys. 10 plays, 47 yards, 4.5 minutes. The team knows how to move the chains. I know we haven't broken the 20-point mark yet, but I was used to a lot of 3-and-outs, early 3-and-outs, with the Ben McAdoo offense, with the Pat Shurmur offense. Jason Garrett is doing a decent job because he's shown in 2 straight games we can sustain long offensive drives where we keep the defense on the field for a while. We're burning off clock, and it's long drives, right? More than 5 plays. We're getting first downs. How many times have we seen our offense come out in previous years where they're not even able to get a first down coming out of the gates? And they have to continue to punt after punt after punt. This drive, obviously, though, stalled in a field goal kick by Gano. 37 yards, and we're 37-yard field goal, and we're down 13-17 with a fighter's chance against the Chicago Bears. Now, let's be honest, that fourth down play when Trubisky had the ball and the Giants were able to tip it, and then their offensive line was able to barely catch it on a diving play. I mean, that was a gut-wrenching play, but other than that, the defense held its own. And the defense held its own on a drive that was getting mauled by David Montgomery. David Montgomery was running all over us on that last Chicago Bears drive. Even after they converted that fourth down, what I really liked about the New York Giants is, they didn't hang their heads. They said, we're going to continue to play ball because there's still time left on that clock. We have to give Daniel Jones and our offense enough, a chance to win this game. And that drive stalled out, and it was a missed field goal. So I do want to give kudos to the New York Giants defense as well. And I think that's a perfect transition because, guys, we went down 17-zip and in the first half. In the second half, we scored 13 points. The Giants defense did not allow a score in the second half. But let me even break it down even more. In the first quarter, the Chicago Bears scored 10 points. They scored 10 points. It was on their first two drives. The first drive was a touchdown on a pass play right off the sidelines where David Montgomery catches it, and there's a couple of missed tackles, and he goes right into the end zone. The second drive stalls out and ends up being a field goal. We're down 10-zip. After that, between quarters 2 and between the second quarter and the fourth quarter, we only gave up one more score. That's showing that the Giants, there's progression here, guys. There's something that we can say we did well. We didn't get blown out. We did well enough to win this game, but some of our early mistakes, look, sometimes they're killers. Sometimes they are. And then, you look, whatever, you live and die with Daniel Jones at your quarterback, but I don't think that this calls for people to, lobby for Trevor Lawrence. I don't want Trevor Lawrence. I want Daniel Jones. Let's stick it out with Daniel Jones. Give him a couple of more years. Give him another maybe 2 years. Let's do what they did with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold looks like if he doesn't get his act together this year or next year, they're going to go look for a new quarterback. We have to, time will tell with Daniel Jones. You can't just say because we're not winning games that we have to go look for a new quarterback. Because you can bring in Trevor Lawrence, but if you don't rebuild your offensive line, if you don't rebuild your front seven, if you don't get a deep enough secondary, then we're going to find ourselves 0-2 every other year. So quarterback's not the issue. But it's very easy to say quarterback is the issue because we're so used to seeing guys like Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, who, granted, I hate to say his name because he's a Dallas Cowboy, Tom Brady. We're so used to Lamar Jackson, of course, Deshaun Watson. We're so used to seeing these guys with success and being able to lead their teams, but every team isn't like that. I mean, we just seen Kyle Murray, who didn't have maybe the greatest passing performance, but still rushed for 2 touchdowns, and the Arizona Cardinals are now 2-0. We just have to wait and see with Daniel Jones. I still think there's potential there because he's shown that he can be a pretty good quarterback. I know that the mistakes are killer, but there have been plenty of drives, especially this year so far in these 2 games, where he just looks unstoppable. And I think those mistakes are fixable, and we just have to wait. I mean, that first interception, Evan Ingram slips on the ball. If Evan Ingram doesn't slip on that route, which I believe was a comeback route, and that turf, by the way, at Soldier Field was terrible. People were slipping all over the place. I think that's how Sterling Shepard even injured his toe in the first place because his cleats got stuck in the turf. But Evan Ingram executes that route to perfection, and he doesn't slip on that comeback route, which looked like to be a comeback route, then it's just an ordinary completion, and no one would be talking about that play. No one would be talking about the fact that Daniel Jones turns the ball over. Because other than that, he only had 1 fumble. But I do want to bring this home. And I want to get back on talking about the defense. I want to give a big round of applause to James Bradbury. Because, I mean, what a way to sort of come in, make an immediate impact, to this New York Giants defense. This secondary is depleted. We lost DeAndre Baker in the offseason. Xavier McKinney, who was supposed to be sort of the savior for that secondary and who's going to be alongside Jabril Peppers, he ends up getting hurt in the offseason. It looks like he'll be out for a majority of the season. Julian Love now has to move back to safety. Corey Ballantyne as our second starting cornerback. We signed Logan Ryan, but Logan Ryan, he's new to the team. He's new to the playbook. He's new to the schemes. I mean, I know he's familiar with somewhat of Joe Judge and Patrick Graham, but overall he is new to the team. So he's not going to get starting. He's not going to get starting at the starting role at CB2. So our best option right after James Bradbury is Corey Ballantyne. So I do want to applaud James Bradbury because he had great plays. He had an interception. He caused an interception. Those are the types of plays we were looking for when we brought him in. And he also made some pretty good plays against the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. Not too many times so far in these first two games have we seen this man get burned, give up big plays, give up reception after reception. Not too many times are we saying, why is James Bradbury continue to get targeted? Why is it that James Bradbury is the reason why the chains keep moving? We've never had that thought so far in these first two games. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from him, and I do want to give a big kudos to him because, he's essentially the reason why we had a fighting chance at the end of that game, in that last drive, to score and actually and potentially win that game. The New York Giants defense had 4 sacks. If anyone had followed my episode last week, I believe against the Pittsburgh Steelers, we had 2 sacks. I told everyone. The New York Giants would get 3 sacks and 8 QB hits. Now, while we didn't get 8 QB hits, I believe we only had about 5 or 6 QB hits. We did get 4 sacks. So to be honest, we got 4. I'm okay with the fact that we didn't hit that 8 QB hit mark because we still doubled our sack production. And we forced 2 interceptions on Mitchell Trubisky, which we weren't able to force turnovers against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So our defense is improving. Did we get ran over all over the place by David Montgomery? Of course we did. Yes, we did. But he's a great back. He's not a scrub. He's a great back. He is their lead back. They have good run schemes. They even know how to get Cordarrelle Patterson going in the run game as well. A wide receiver who converted to running back. Guys, in the second half, we shut out the Chicago Bears. And I know that the Chicago Bears offense isn't the Kansas City Chiefs offense or the Seattle Seahawks offense or this high-octane sort of pass attack. But defense is defense, and let's not act like, had our defense got completely shredded and Trubisky threw for 4 touchdowns with 400 yards, that we would be sitting here saying, no, it's okay, they're a great offense. The defense did as good of a job as they could, and they kept the Giants in the game. The first 2 drives, the defense looked horrid, giving up third down after third down after third down. I would say overall, all game generally, though, the defense didn't do that well on third downs. But that's only because majority of those third down situations, the Chicago Bears were third and less than 5. It's not that much yard. It's not that much to really defend when. It's pretty hard to defend when the offense is playing on a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1. So, I can't blame the New York Giants. It's like I can't really, despite the fact that the Chicago Bears had a high third down conversion rate, you got to give the Giants credit because the Bears only scored 17 points. 10 of those came in the first quarter. All of those points came in the first half. And week 3, next weekend on Sunday, the New York Giants will be facing the San Francisco 49ers. We have a fighter's chance to beat the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, don't get me wrong, losing against the Bears was huge because we would have been able to be 1-1 and heading back home, facing the 49ers, which is a depleted roster. Right? Raheem Mostert, he's doubtful. Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt. Dee Ford, their defensive end, is hurt. Tevin Coleman is out. Nick Bosa's out. I believe Kittle and Deebo Samuel might also be out too. So from a defensive and offensive perspective, I mean, that takes the load and the weight off of the New York Giants. gives us a much better chance to win the game. I mean, the spread is only 4.5 in favor of the 49ers. That's only a field goal. It's a field goal and change. The Giants have a fighter's chance to win this game. And I know, we have to move on from Chicago. We have to move on from these first two losses, and we have to, take each game as an opportunity for us to win. I think the Giants are going to be motivated and confident knowing that they had a fighter's chance, and they put up a good fight in week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, in week 2 against the Chicago Bears and that blue collar rough defense, and now week 3. I think this is where we may see it coming all together. Now it's going to be tough. I know Saquon's out, but Wayne Gallman, he wasn't hurt. He was a healthy scratch. Wayne Gallman's going to play. Deion Lewis is still a serviceable back. I read earlier today that the Giants have brought in Devontae Freeman for workouts. You mix in those 3 running backs. I mean, look, we have a fighter's chance to get a committee going, get some decent production in the run game. And, say what you want, but Daniel Jones, even without a running game for 2 weeks and without a complete arsenal of wide receiver weapons, has shown in a couple of instances in each game that he can sustain long drives that continue to move the chains. Drives where you'd think, wow, this New York Giants team looks unstoppable. Now we just have to take those long drives and convert those into points. Against the Steelers, 19-play drive, interception. Against Chicago, 2 long drives. One of them is a touchdown, one of them gets converted into a field goal. We're making progress. I think we'll win against the 49ers, and we'll be 1-2 by the end of week 3. And folks, that about wraps it up. That's the episode of Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube page. Follow me on Instagram. That's _unsportsmanlike_conduct. And lastly, I'm also on Twitter, so please follow me on Twitter. That's _unsportsman. It's your boy HP. Peace out.